Hello everyone and welcome to an ETTO spoiler cast for Miss Marvel. Was very exciting for a lot of us. We'll see how it pans out after we've had a big chat about it. But I'm Ben.
Josh.
And I'm Will.
All right.
Oh, that's not
Miss Marvel.
That's weird, right? Yeah.
Embiggen.
Yeah.
It's a little bit.
It's so strange.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. We're here today to talk about the Disney Plus TV show, Miss Marvel. Mm-hmm. She is a character that was introduced pretty recently into the comics, back in like 2015. And it's very exciting to have her in live action. Let's just get like spoiler-free thoughts off the top. What are we thinking? Josh, you go first.
Look, the show felt pretty messy to me, especially after episode 2 out of 6. So episode 3 onwards felt pretty rough. I loved all of the casting. Nearly all of the casting. We'll get more into that later. But I think she just embodies Miss Marvel perfectly. It is amazing. She's phenomenal. I don't know her name. I'm so sorry.
Iman Vellani.
Iman Vellani. She's so good. Yeah. So fun. I think the first 2 episodes and maybe the final episode were probably
they're the only 3
my favorite, but they're
the only 3 episodes from this show, right? Like there was another show in this show.
There was something else was happening somewhere in the middle there. But yeah, it definitely not up the top for me.
Yeah.
Probably realistically right at the bottom.
Yeah.
Probably my least favorite.
Yeah.
But
is such a shame.
Yeah. I was really looking forward to this one. But yeah, just with how messy parts of the story was, it was just hard to follow.
Yeah.
And my parents, who also love everything, didn't like that.
Yeah,
I haven't really enjoyed much of this at all.
Yeah.
So that's
interesting.
Telling. A family that loves everything
Yeah.
Totally.
did not really enjoy this one.
Yeah. Unsurprisingly, I'm in the same boat. I didn't grow warm to it at all.
Okay.
I don't think. Like, I didn't even have people in the Discord would know as well. I didn't have much of a love for the first episode. Yeah. I liked what it was. I just was very conscious that it wasn't for me in terms of the tone of the dialogue and everything. It was very aimed to be, and it was very like Disney Channel Saturday morning kind of teen drama, which was fun, but I was very removed from it. But yeah, Iman's amazing. She is Miss Marvel. The faces that she makes throughout the sequence, it's like it's the beauty of a rubber face. It's the Matt Smith thing. It's just like if you can just do that with your face, do it all you can. And then of course the family, phenomenal. Like I worry because they feel like the exact thing that Marvel will never use again. Like, this is their shining story, and then they're like, all right, she's an Avenger now, bye. And
because she'll just get taken away from them and they won't get much of a look in anymore.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. It's... there's a reason I'm the middle box in this podcast because I'm probably the most positive on this show, but that doesn't mean I'm like super into everything it does. I love the first 2 episodes. I would like go back and just watch the first 2 episodes happily and rewatch all the dynamics of like the family, learning who they are, kind of like learning who Kamala is as a character in her natural environment. Also like learning about her friendships, her school, all that kind of thing. As soon as we get into the powers, any of like the villain stuff, which we'll talk about later, it just really like drops off a cliff. And that's a shame. That's a real shame because I think there was definitely something there in the first couple episodes, even if like Will, as you're saying, you weren't a big fan on it. I think you can at least probably acknowledge that like they had more of a tone that they were going for in those first couple episodes, and it just like all of a sudden you get to like episode 3 and they go to Pakistan, and it's like we're watching a different show. And I think without going too much more into it because it's spoiler territory, I think what they tried to do with her backstory and her origin story actually really just muddled the core of what Miss Marvel as a character is and what we all love from the comics, which is that she is the hero of Jersey City, this small city just off, like basically just across the river from New York or bay or whatever. I don't know what it is. I'm not American. And like that is her thing. That is her shtick. Yep. And I think while I really appreciate the cultural aspects that come with her going to Pakistan and stuff, I feel like for the purpose of what this show is trying to do and creating a basis for this character to exist within the MCU, that actually like did a disservice to a lot of that stuff. I think there's a separate conversation to be had about culturally how important that is, because I think culturally that's super important. And the fact that for Islamic people, and particularly South Asian Islamic people and Pakistani Islamic people, having those stories told on screen is super important. And like having people learn about the partition and stuff is super important. I almost just wish that was a separate show. Like,
yeah. Or season 2. Just she gets to delve deeper into her stuff. Because
Totally.
I also think, and this is bordering spoilers, you've heard our thoughts on the thing, I guess, for kind of in spoilers.
Yeah, let's jump into spoilers,
I also just think they didn't go hard enough into that history. It was during 4 or 5 where they really go in and show the train sequence and stuff. And by the end of it, I was like, I don't think I've learnt anything.
Yeah.
I just feel like you were there and like had all the ideas and the ingredients to teach me something, but you actually just wanted it for flavor to kind of add something else to the show, and it just was unnecessary.
Because they were teaching, like they were talking about, like, well, they were in British occupied India, and it's like, I don't know much about that.
Tell me more.
I don't know what's happening. Like,
I feel like everything we were told about that happened in like episode 2 in a conversation around the table, and the whole episode where we spent there didn't actually offer. Maybe it offered a bit more of like context of like how people felt at the time. But even then they like said that they were like, every family has a partition story, and it was horrible for a lot of Pakistani families that have been displaced and all that kind of stuff. And it's like that's cool. I want to hear more about that. I want to learn about that as someone that is not from that area, has not been through any of that, has like a very surface level knowledge of historically what happened. I think that would, I'd love to learn more about that, but they just don't go hard enough into it. It's symptomatic, I think, of the overall problem with Disney Plus TV shows, particularly Marvel ones, that they are only 6 episodes and they commit to that, but they're trying to tell so many different stories within those 6 episodes. Yeah. It's like, you're totally right. I feel like this could have been a season 2 story when we have a season 1 focused on Miss Marvel becoming the superhero Miss Marvel, because ultimately we get so little of that, and I think that's a shame.
Yeah, totally. I guess like on her being a superhero, the upfront biggest change, apart from what happens in the last 2 seconds of the show, is the power set, and like I think they solved that well. Like I think I think visually it's maybe a bit messier than just making her stretchy, but it's fine. I wasn't annoyed by it by the end of it.
Yeah. I was okay with the power set as well. I think visually the sort of like, it kind of looks like a low poly object, because it's like very like there's a lot of flat edges around it and stuff, but it can look kind of messy sometimes because it's semi-transparent as well and stuff like that.
So
like,
you're kind of seeing her body within it, and it's kind of like she's not actually embiggened when she does her cool embiggened moment at the end.
Totally.
Yes. Yeah. Like it should be, if they made it like, it looked like her hand or something just getting really big.
But it's still just a crystal thing.
Yeah, like, I don't know, if they made it clear that it wasn't her, but it also wasn't like see-through, because the see-through part I think looked really messy, because you could see everything on the other side of it, but also distorted. I don't know. Yeah, parts of it looked...
It's interesting because I feel like part of the reason they changed the powers was because... Well, probably part of it was to do with like Reed Richards and them wanting to introduce him in at some point soon, but also because from a CGI perspective, it's not the easiest power set to make look good.
Yep.
You see like the videos of the old Fantastic Four movies, and there's a reason they don't look great. And so they kind of took this approach, but then they still had her use it. I thought they were going to go more like she has full on like different powers, but they still go very in on her using her like stretchy arms and her embiggening and stuff. And it's like the moment when she says embiggen in the final episode is very cool for people who like know and love the character.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, then you see her embiggen and you're like,
that's not it.
Okay, that's not what it is. That's not what it looks like. And I always wish if they're like going with this like Bengal cosmic mystical polygon powers or whatever we're going to call them, I think they needed to go maybe harder. Like she really just used it as a shield or a stepping platform. Yeah, most of the time, and then she does the embiggen powers, and it's like I feel like there's a lot more you can do with that kind of hard light power. I mean, you just look at Green Lantern,
and
for example.
It's totally that thing of, again, it misses the point of Miss Marvel. Like, so much of her power, and like they can change the visual look to it, which we all kind of knew up front, but it's like they removed the grossness of it, and they didn't supplement that with anything. And I mean, you know, mutant might be the thing that she has to deal with because she might be the first one and people won't like that, and it all but it's like that's not the point of Miss Marvel. It's like there's so much to her power set that was like she hated, she didn't like it, and at no point was she annoyed by the fact that she could do and it's like, oh man, I really thought that they were smart enough that they would supplement that with something, but it was really just a superhero. It was Peter Parker getting Spidey powers. It's like, sick, I can do a thing. And it's like, oh, okay.
It was kind of the moment when in the first episode she gets the powers and she sees it and she says like cosmic. It's like, oh, okay. So immediately she's kind of happy she has them. And it's like, it's not in the comics that she's not happy she has them. Like she's a superhero fan. She thinks it's cool that she has powers, but she's not happy in the way it like manifests with her. And like, obviously she has body image issues and that kind of thing. And so it's kind of like, it's definitely a different take on it. And I think one of our big concerns coming into it was that it would lose that aspect of the comics. And it definitely, I think I have written in my notes, was the change justified? And I think ultimately probably not. I think it's just like, I do ultimately at this point think it's really there to distance herself from Reed Richards and stuff. But then at the same point, it feels like they're leaning towards her getting those base original powers at some point as well. So it's a very confusing move that almost like just muddies the waters going forward on what this character is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because I was just going to say, as we talked about, like Iman Vellani does a fantastic job. It's just like the character is in a difficult spot, I feel like, at this point.
Yeah. No, I got nothing else to add on that. It's unfortunate that they changed them. I was hoping they had a reason, and apart from that, which is so dumb. It's the thing that I'm scared for Marvel, because it's like they changed it because of that. I can only imagine if they do a Black Cat, they won't want her to look like Catwoman. They're changing Namor because they don't want the Aquaman comparisons. They're so afraid of trusting that an audience can accept two of the same thing. It's a really dangerous line to go down. Like, this especially barely worked, but it's like, I don't know. I'm worried.
Yeah.
Especially when you're introducing, literally in the show, the word mutants into it. It's like,
and
a lot of those mutants have like 20 of them have telekinetic powers.
Yeah.
So like, you've got to work out what you're going to do there.
Good luck, guys.
Look, what I mentioned it, so let's get onto it. The mutant reveal at the end. How do we feel about it? Obviously, I think in the comics, she's an Inhuman, because at the time when the character was created, they were very much pushing the Inhuman front of things and not the X-Men front of things. But now we're in a spot where Marvel has the rights to all that stuff again. There's no muddied waters. They can do what they want. And I think I was reading just earlier this morning that G. Willow Wilson and the other creators of the original comic wanted her to be a mutant originally. So this is kind of like a nice rounding out of that original vision for what the character is. You guys happy about it? Are you excited to see maybe how they approach her as a mutant? Does it mean anything compared to her as an Inhuman? Because realistically, they're the same thing.
Yeah, in my head, I don't care. I don't know much about either. I don't read X-Men. Like I guess I would know more about X-Men than I do Inhumans anyway. The most Inhuman stuff that I know about is probably from Miss Marvel. But yeah, I feel like it probably doesn't matter too much. And also, I feel the MCU is really trying to push away from what they did with the Inhumans. I don't think they're bringing them back anytime soon, but it's seeming like they're wanting to.
It just makes the Black Bolt cameo.
Yeah, it's like, what were you doing there?
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
the point of that?
Yeah. That. Other than that was a weird thing, especially if they're not going to be like, oh, Miss Marvel is an Inhuman like she is in the comic books, like her lore.
Yeah.
It's funny because the more and more time that goes on from that Multiverse of Madness set of cameos, the more and more you're like, oh, so this is like a joke now. You're actually putting these in, like, because it seems pretty clear John Krasinski probably isn't going to be Reed Richards.
Yeah.
And like Black Bolt just
out
the window. And it seems like the only thing they're actually going to use is maybe Professor X, but even then, the waters are very muddy on it. So it's kind of like, again, that movie not aging well. The more and more we think about the multiverse in that movie.
My biggest sadness with the change is that, like, I was just excited for her to hang out with Lockjaw. Like, so much of what I know of the comics is how much she's got a friendship with Lockjaw. And it's like, oh man, like, don't remove that. And it's the thing of everything in the MCU it's like Star Wars. It's getting smaller. It's like everything they're doing it's not broadening a universe. It's very much this narrow thing. Because I've seen people are like, oh, is she a young Avenger or is she a mutant? It's like all these teams are kind of becoming one in the same. It's like, I don't know. I think it would have been... I think we didn't need the tag at all. It was just kind of like, okay, like, why wasn't that the plot of the show?
Her line is literally like, oh, it's just another label. And it's kind of like poking fun at what it is in the show itself, which is just like a tagline at the end.
Because it's like, if you wanted to do that, cool. But that's the like, what are you doing that now for?
Yeah.
Like, why is that here? It's it was a cool thing. It was cool to hear the theme for a fraction of a second.
Come in.
I don't know what it actually means.
Yeah. I feel like that's where I sit with it, where it's like it's a cool reveal. Like, it's cool, as I said, that they're getting back to the original idea for what they wanted the character to be all those years ago. I say all those years ago, it's like 6. But yeah, it's kind of, I feel like a lot of people on the internet are getting very excited about what it means and stuff, and I'm just kind of like, as you said, realistically, what does it actually mean? Not much. Like, it just means that, like, any mutant stories that get involved, she might be part of it, but then it's also setting her up to be a part of the Avengers. So
why is she cosmic? Why'd you make her cosmic if she's mutant? That's an unnecessary.
Totally, because then it also has, like, it muddies the waters of having to explain, oh, like, there's an extra part of you that's mutant on top of these cosmic powers you have, which they say at the end, and it's just like, it's extra layers on top of it that it, like, the base level, if, like, the choice was to make her a mutant, don't change those powers or anything at all. Like, just keep the character what it was.
Yeah.
Because those powers make more sense for a mutant and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it evolves. Hopefully they have good ideas with it, but I'm not too confident at the moment.
Yeah.
Look, let's get into probably the biggest strength of the show before we talk about the biggest weakness of the show. Biggest strength, obviously, the family and the family dynamics and her friendship groups and that kind of, I guess, by extension, the, like, wider Jersey City, South Asian Islamic world that they're a part of. I think that is by far and away where this show shines. It's a shame almost we didn't get more of it. As I said, they kind of just go off to Pakistan in, like, episode 3, and, like, there's some cool conversations with, like, her auntie and stuff there that are nice, but overall we then just spend all this time away from these characters. Like, I think Bruno and Nakia are super interesting in those first couple episodes. They just get shoved to the side and come back in the 6th episode like, oh my god, we're here. And same with the rest of the family. Like, the brother is awesome. The dad as well is, like, a perfect portrayal of what Abu is in the comics, but also, like, his own version of it. And I guess the one character that really gets done well is the mother, Ami. And I think the fact that she's with Kamala throughout the show means that she really gets to shine. But yeah, I think the family they set up was really good. I don't know, do you guys have any particular thoughts otherwise?
They were pretty one-to-one with what I've experienced in the comics.
Yeah.
I think the only bit, and we'll get back into you probably have more comments, the only bit that I didn't love was the kind of direction they took with how she was outed. It felt like they weren't their characters in that scene. There was, like, I'm fine with them being very supportive of Kamala. That's awesome. But it was like, it just felt like they twisted on a dime, and maybe there was a great scene where because it was set up for a great gag of they all already know, and it's very fun, but it feels like we missed the moment where he was stressed and he found out, we just never got a moment of like any superhero story
of them actually finding out
and being worried for her. Like there was a very brief moment, and then it's like, you're not going to go run off, are you? And then she does, and it's like and then at the end it's really nice and lovely. That's the only part I didn't love, and I think it's not just the family stuff. I think the whole show is missing scenes. It's the most
totally
chopped together, as we say, messy. It just feels like we missed motivation for redhead bully girl turning up at the school at night where no one was there. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Why are you here?
She was filming TikToks, Will.
Oh.
She was filming TikToks.
at the school.
At the school at night?
By herself.
By herself?
It's got the best lighting. They explained it in one line.
Oh,
Come on, Will.
It just feels like that stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, no, totally.
It just feels like there's so much missing from this show. And I think it's those 2 episodes where they're doing a different thing. And those things are good. It's just not, it's not fulfilling for the characters.
I really, again, we won't dwell on that too long because we already talked about it, but I really wish that had been separated out into a second season.
The dagger stuff was cool. Little underground Assassin's Creed guys.
Yeah.
Even in the comic, that base family stuff where she goes and visits the Red Daggers in Pakistan is in later in that first run of comics. And the start is based around her getting her footing within Jersey City. And I think kind of like trying to mush them all together into one. There's a big struggle.
It also gave her like 4 love interests in the space of 2 hours, and it was like, this is
totally.
why are you doing this?
Totally. I was I was really happy with the decision they took to have the parents be supportive. I think like the more I think I mentioned it in one of the podcasts I did with you a while ago. The more and more superhero media I watch, the more and more I just wish characters would like admit that they are a superhero to like their family more and more, because that's just, it gets rid of a whole bunch of just like unnecessary, like we know eventually they're going to find out it's going to be some big thing or something. It's why I like the Aunt May reveal in Spider-Man, that she like sees him with his costume on and all that stuff. And I like that they did it with these characters. I do agree that there's definitely not that moment of coming to terms with it, and I thought when Abu was having a conversation with her a bit later, like on the roof, there was going to be that moment of like, there was like a line where he was like, I'm worried for you. And it's like, I feel like as a parent, there would be a bit more than just, I'm worried for you. There would be like a larger conversation around that topic. And actually, Josh, do you have any thoughts on it before I go?
I was just going to jump in. There was one part that I was like frustrated about with that reveal, which I mentioned to Will at the time, because I think she says something like, "Do you guys trust me?" And the mother was like, "We always trust you." I'm like, not once have you ever trusted your daughter in this entire show so far. Not once. Like from the moment that we saw you, you did not trust her with anything. You didn't let her do anything.
And totally,
it was just such a weird.
It also ties into when I was listening to a breakdown on one of these episodes, they had like a Pakistani Muslim on the show, and he was talking about how this is a very aspirational version of what a South Asian family is, and like the reality is that in a lot of scenarios, like South Asian children do not have this relationship with their parents, and their parents are a lot more overprotective, and like it's nowhere near as positive as it is in a lot of moments of these shows, and I feel like we get glimpses of that at times where it's like the overprotective parent and stuff, but then it's very quickly pushed aside to be like, no, we're super supportive of you and stuff, and it's almost, it's interesting in a way. Like I guess it's nice that they're trying to give that positive aspirational version of what this family could be. For like those kind of families that are out there in the real world kind of going through this, but at the same time, it doesn't make sense for the characters.
They're so half-hearted on the amount that they want to be truthful. It always feels like they're holding back. Even like we get the scene with, is it Nakia? Is that her friend?
Yeah.
Like we get the sequence that's very much from the comics where they're in the mosque and the wall and all that, and it's like that's the only time there's kind of a but, and then she goes on to try to run and succeeds, and it's like we missed the scene where it's just it's a very soft version, like you say, of a lot of those situations where there's no real pushback.
There doesn't seem to be much of a struggle for her doing that.
They imply it. Like, it's definitely it's definitely there, but it's like she tries and wins, and and it's delightful because it's a Disney thing, and it's like it's nice that everyone's happy in the end, but it is just that weird war of how much representation actually is that doing for it's like it's totally. a weird thing.
Like you said, it softens the impact of how big that probably is for that community.
Yeah,
that
I think it's like
now in leadership.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's like we're not the ones obviously to talk on how valid the representation is. I just think you're right, it's a very Disney thing, and in a way it's nice that like we get plenty of media where like there's a happy family dynamic and all that kind of stuff. So maybe it's nice in that capacity, but I just think from like listening to that guy talk, and then also South Asian people I know, my housemate is part of the South Asian family, and I know those family dynamics, and they tend to be a lot more stressful than is depicted in this show. And it's just I'd be very curious. I think overall people from that background seem positive on this show, but I'd be very curious to know if that is like which side of that they would prefer, if they prefer the more authentic representation of it, or if actually having this aspirational version is a nice thing to look at and be like, if only. Well, I said that was the biggest strength of the show. Ultimately, we were a bit down on some aspects, but I do think at the very least, the core performances and the actors they got for it, and like, the dynamics between the characters and their conversations was good, even if the overall decisions behind a lot of the conversations and stuff was a bit confusing.
It'll be cool to see for 5 minutes Brie Larson acting with the family, because obviously that's going to be a nice little bit in the Marvels, so that'll be fun.
I do hope, as you said, they don't get pushed to the side, and if there is, it seems like there'll be a Miss Marvel season 2, and I kind of hope there is, even if there's some stuff I want them to fix up. I do hope the family is still a very big part of that, because they've continued to be in Miss Marvel comics, and I think it's really important that they are. Same with all the friends, Bruno, Nakia, Zoe. Again, people were very confused. Like, who haven't read the comics were very confused about Zoe showing up and just being all happy with them. And I was like, it's because she's like, she does that in the comics, but it was just so unexplained in this show.
It really was. And it was really weird as well. Like, when I saw, when there was a close up on her TikTok. I saw her TikTok and went to TikTok to see whether they had uploaded videos for her. And it's a private account. So the account exists, but her, it's something like the real Zoe Zimmer or something, whatever her name is. And it's a private account at the moment. But when I looked it up, there was a bunch of like hashtag Zoe Zimmer things underneath. And it's crazy how much she was in like the marketing for this. Like she was on posters apparently. Like there's one where she's talking to an interviewer on the red carpet of the Miss Marvel show and stuff, and she's on posters in the background. She was talking about how like someone messaged her and was like, oh, you're on this poster on this street. So she like jumped in her car with her friends and drove to go see it. And it's like, why were you on the poster for this show? You were in it for maybe like 15 minutes.
And I think if those 2 episodes had been spent in that school, having like dealing with those friendship dynamics, ultimately having it be like a Disney Channel high school drama at its core, I think that it probably would have made a lot more sense. And having her come in at the end wouldn't have felt really jarring and weird.
And like the thing of the other villains, we'll talk about the damage control. What are they? Like, what are they to the MCU? When they pop in at the end and they've got guns and stuff, I'm like, I thought they just like cleared stuff up.
The only time we've really seen them before has been in Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah.
Where they're
let's
cleaning
talk
up.
about
like
the freaking villains of this show. Because my goodness.
Can I just jump in super quick?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you reckon any of the TV shows we're seeing, like Miss Marvel, She-Hulk soon, all that sort of stuff, do you reckon they will get their own films, or do you reckon they will remain as... Yeah. Do you reckon they will remain as...
The only one so far is Captain America. There's Captain America 4 coming.
Yeah, okay.
So I guess that's possible.
Like, do you think Miss Marvel will get a movie? Because I can see a Miss Marvel movie that is more localized to New York, almost like a Spider-Man, where she has her friends that help her out because, you know, Zendaya and Ned, I can't remember his actual name. They are like so crucial to those movies at all times. Like I can see
they've set that up here.
I can see a Miss Marvel that's a lot more localized with her friends, kind of being really good. And
I personally can't see a world in which she gets a movie. I feel like the character is so set up for a TV show structure. Even just like thinking of her comics, like they are so serialized, and I think it would almost be weird having her in a film. But I do think if that is the case, it needs a creative rejig of how they're going to structure that series. It really needs, and I mean, we've said this for like so many of these TV shows, it really needs to be like a 12-episode series, even if the episodes are shorter. Just give stuff more time to breathe.
She-Hulk's 9 eps, and they're all like 25-ish. So they're at least going to try that. This show just makes me annoyed that there's not a... This is not the 2 episodes, is what I've wanted forever for Spider-Man. I've always wanted this for Spider-Man because, like you say, the comics of Miss Marvel, the comics of Spider-Man is villain of the week. There's like an underlying story, but it's always like take down baddie, have fun. You got your mates and stuff. Like this is what I've wanted from a Spider-Man show forever, and even this they failed. So I'm like, well, there's never going to be a Spider-Man show because they can't do it. But the villains.
Damage Control. I love the guy who was in Spider-Man. I think he's fantastic. I think in this show he is very good as well. Everything else about Damage Control, the woman, her name is Diva,
lady,
the racist lady that they can't commit. They can't commit to her being racist either. Though it's like they're like, oh, she's loosely racist, but she won't flat out say a racist thing. And it's like, just pick what. Like, if she's going to be racist, like,
go in again.
Go in on
soft.
it. It's just such a weird It's such a weird character because every now and then she also like goes back and is like, oh no, I'm not going to do it. Oh, but I guess I will push really hard. And like, I really disliked her with a passion. She seemed to have very confusing motives. Ultimately, I guess, she was just a racist character who wanted to like catch some Islamic kids. But it didn't even feel like they went all in on that. No. It just felt like she was a weird, like,
just a wicked witch that's like, yeah, I'm gonna get those kids. So
caricature of what a bad guy is, really. Like, she didn't have any depth to her.
She was so dry too.
Yeah,
even her acting wasn't that interesting.
No.
Yeah,
there's nothing going on. Totally. I did see some people are like wondering if she and dude from WandaVision that was the director of S.W.O.R.D., whether they're going to be for mutants. They're going to like create the Sentinels, and they're going to, it's like we're starting to see people against that kind of culture.
Yeah.
Maybe. It was also this weird thing of like them being against kid superheroes, which is like a thing that has been dabbled with in the comics, especially like Miss Marvel herself and like Champion stuff. They've had an organization called Cradle, which was all about like stopping teenage superheroes, basically. And it's like, but even that aspect they didn't go full in on. It was so confusing whether it was supposed to be like a racism thing, if it was supposed to be like, no, we don't want kid superheroes, like what Damage Control's purpose is overall. As I said, I really love the actor who's in Spider-Man, but it still is confusing to me what
cool to see
their
the
role
Stark
is.
drones in something that isn't Spider-Man as well.
Yeah,
like, cool.
Totally.
Yeah.
It definitely feels like their kind of Damage Control as a whole is being shoehorned into the MCU because they were originally going to make that TV show and then they were like, oh, well, we can't make that anymore, but let's just chuck them in so that because we think they're still cool. Realistically, they're not even that cool.
Like I do like what you said about making the Sentinels and stuff though, because they have been collecting a lot of alien tech that they can just turn into their own things. So they have a bunch of stuff that humans should not have access to.
Yeah, totally.
So that's...
There's also the thing that we had with this finale episode where she's like, there's people like us and blah, 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 and people won't like... And it's like, sometimes the MCU forgets that there are other superheroes. The way that she talks to Kamran is like... It's like there's no one else that can do what they can do. And it's like, we're in a world... And it's the same with Damage Control. It's like, apart from the kids thing, it's like, what's the difference between them and literally anyone else? I can't hear you anymore, Ben.
Totally.
It's it's also so tonally confusing, I think, with like what Miss Marvel is as a character. She's like a fangirl of the Avengers within her universe and stuff. Like, she loves superheroes. So when she's like, there's no one else that can do what we do, it's like, no, like, and you know that. Like,
they're everywhere.
They're literally everywhere in your universe. So why are why are we at this point with, like, why are we even having that discussion?
Yeah, I think for a fangirl, I only ever really remember her mentioning Captain Marvel.
Famously, the hero that has done nothing.
Yeah, has barely been on Earth. Like, none of the others. Like, I know, we get references to them at AvengerCon and stuff.
I think
like
the first
that,
episode we do get that of like a wider thing of her mentioning other characters as well.
Yeah. But yeah, it's so interesting that she's not like, does one of the
to make it a shield.
Yeah. She's like, oh, I'm Captain America.
Yeah.
Like something like that.
There's stuff. Yeah,
there's no little sort of like excited references.
That's a good point.
Like you would expect.
Yeah.
Like she could throw something at someone.
Yeah.
Like, create something like a hammer and throw it. And she's just taking everything from this. Like there was so much more she could have done. It's like you said, like a Green Lantern thing. She could essentially make this stuff and just do exactly what she's watched superheroes do.
Make the big Hulk hands. Like when she embiggens her hand, just go Hulk smash.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it would be totally. Oh, I didn't even think that. That would have been really
good.
And like, I did kind of like how they incorporated in that Ant-Man podcast to kind of explain how everyone knew about the battle. Like that was cool.
So funny.
And kind of explained how everyone does know about Captain Marvel and like that she knows she exists.
Yeah.
But I think. Yeah, they also lost a lot of that part of the character across the course of the show. Stylistically, the first episode also had like a lot going on with like on-screen animations and stuff, and that got lost over the course of the show.
But I thought, and it did it. I was so sad. I was like, they do it every time with these Disney. There's always a hook. There's always a cool visual hook in the first episode.
There were tiny bits for text messages, but that was about it.
Yeah.
Like the text message things were like, oh, yes, they're back. But it was like, it's fleeting.
They had stop motion animation in the first episode.
So
totally. I remember talking to Josh after the first episode, which we were both pretty high on at the time. And it was like, talking about how much visually like that first episode had an identity, and it was doing stop motion animation, it was doing the cool text message effects, which even though they continued throughout the show, were at its best in these first episode or two. And also like when they were going through Jersey City and on the walls they had like graffiti showing up, like animated graffiti. And that had like bits of all the different superheroes. That was like, those were the moments where it was like, yeah, you are part of this wider world where you know these characters exist and you have a style that you're going for. And by the final episode, when it's like they're back in Jersey City and they get all that, all we get is some chalkboard converting into real life people talking, and it's like, come on. Like it's just it's such a disappointment ultimately when I was so high on that first episode, and like I thought it had so much going for it, and just the more and more the show went on, the more I was like, oh, this is not what I want it to be. Let's quickly talk about the other villains, which are arguably even worse than Damage Control.
There's nothing to
say.
The clandestines are all dead, maybe, but Kamran still exists. Somehow, some way, Marvel still managed to have a character with the same powers fight the main character at the end. With this show, somehow
they changed the powers and they still did it.
And it's like ultimately, I guess it was like a little bit of a play on it. Cameron wasn't totally bad, but he was like he was
evil
literally
for like
just
5 minutes. He was like, I'm gonna kill everyone.
And he was just firing out like evil shards of whatever. Talk about being visually messy. I found that last scene really hard to watch because of how those powers looked, especially his. I think like they had a good like level of transparency almost going on for Miss Marvel's thing, that like you could kind of still see what was going on in the scene, but his were a lot harder, which I think was a stylistic choice.
Yeah. I think it was nice.
It's more like rugged and stuff.
Yeah, his seemed like pointier.
Yeah,
but then as soon as she is like trying to protect him or whatever, hers is a lot rounder. Even though it's still very like low poly and very like flat crystal-esque, but you could tell the difference, which was nice. But there was so much of it.
I think. My struggle was, watching that last scene, it was just as soon as he started using his powers and it started like going everywhere on the screen, I was just like, it's really hard to see what I'm watching. Totally. And like, we're getting this cool moment of Kamala like finally being Miss Marvel, the superhero that we've waited, frankly, too long in this series to actually see. And then it's like, I can't see most of what's going on because we're focusing on Kamran using these powers or like... Yeah, even when she is embiggening and running off, you're seeing like her feet.
Yeah.
You're not actually seeing her whole character, and it's just like this weird moment. Like Kamran is a character that shows up in the comics. He is another Inhuman that's kind of like fighting against the main Inhuman family. So they kind of carried across some of those elements of his character into this, but I wish it hadn't been in it. I really wish the clandestines and Kamran and all that stuff were not in this show at all. It was just damage control, and they like actually sorted out what they wanted damage control to be as an antagonist. Even if they introduce Kamran as he is in these first couple of episodes, and he's just a like love interest,
the
and
worst
then in
actor.
The future, that is true.
Just the worst actor.
But then in like a future season or story with Miss Marvel, like. He does get involved in some other way. We do have that storyline come down the line. I think that would be good. The whole clandestine family just seemed like that is like a deep comic cut, like not something that many people care about at all, and is also like really just felt like a way to somehow incorporate in this wider like Jin story they had, which just in the end it totally fell flat for me.
It not only muddied the present day, it also muddied whatever they wanted to teach us in the
past.
Yeah, totally.
That was slowly building to be informative, and then old mate rocks up and is like, let's leave, and they're like, oh god, all right, now I'm confused. It's I've got, there's literally nothing to say apart from why is it there, and they just had no purpose. It was ridiculous.
It seems like their purpose was to push that that overall like Pakistani story, but like it as you said, did a disservice to it in the end. It actually took away from the important time she was spending with her family there and learning about her like her base family origins, not even the superhero stuff, just who her family was. It took completely away from that.
It was weird. I just they turned evil so fast with like such little explanation because she meets them at the end of episode 2, I think, and then at the like kind of they're in the car, and then she talks to them at the start of episode 3, and they're like, "Oh, we need your help because you have the powers to get us back." And she's like, "Cool, can probably help you, but I've got my brother's wedding, so I got to go do that." And then she leaves, and then they're like, "It's taken too long." It's like, you've been here for thousands of years. Just wait like another day for this girl just to, you know, sort out some stuff. And then she seemed very willing to help. For the most part, and they were just so quick to be like, "We have to kill her." Like, what? Why?
All she said was like, "Oh, I just there might be a few problems with it. Just give me a little bit of time to work it out." But it's like. That is I get you've been around for a while and you really, really want to go home. But at this point, like, are you really going to be that upset that she's like, I want to help. I just need a bit of time. It's so weird.
So fast.
If you're so quick to just be like, screw you, just kill her. Just try to kill her when you met her. You're like, oh, that's the banger we need. All right, you're now dead. Like, never be good. Be a villain the whole time. Because as soon as literally the episode where they're in the car, I think I turned to you and I was like, I mean, they'll be bad by next week, right? Like, it's like, there's no...
And they were so fast.
Yeah, there's nothing
It wasn't even by
interesting
next week. It was like the next minute of the TV show.
I think there may be a better show that was cut because it just feels like there's so much missing from everything about this show. And it's like... We've theorized it for things like Thor and Doctor Strange, but this is the one that I'm like, no, something was lifted. they remove something from this show because there's just so many motives. Like that's the biggest thing that I have a problem with. There is so many times where someone says a thing and there is no setup for it. Like there's the thing with Nakia. She's like, "Oh, I wasn't going to tell you that was superhero because I know you hate superheroes." And it's like, what? Why are you saying? When did she hate Like, there's just so many.
We weren't told that.
Yeah, and it's never the person. It's like someone else is like, this is a thing that you are.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, why didn't the show set that up? Why is there not a scene? Again, it's the show, not tell. Like, why is there nothing built to these motives? It's just every time I am doing this for this purpose, or I am not doing this. And it's like, but I don't believe that because you haven't shown me anything to build that character. And I just think something's cut.
I feel like I totally agree. I think at the most, all we ever get for those kind of things is one throwaway line. And it's like, unless you're paying attention to every line of this TV show, you are not comprehending those things at all. And you shouldn't have to be.
No.
Like there should have been, they're very easily, to back that up, should have been a part where her and Bruno and Nakia are like sitting together at school and Bruno's like, "Hey, do you guys want to go to AvengerCon?" And she's like, "No, like why would I want to go to that?" And like is very clearly not interested in superheroes at all. That's all. That would have been
something.
But
I think the closest we got was her saying at one point, like, when Kamala was first using her powers, she was like, "Oh, she's just making it like harder for all of the rest of us because she's putting us like more at danger." And that's not her saying,
"I hate superheroes.
I don't like superheroes." That's being like, "Oh, it's just like a pain in the ass for us because like now we have these damage control people coming to mosques and stuff." And it's like, as you said, it's not that clear, definitive, like, this is not something I like, which we really needed to get to that point. Look, I don't think we have much more to say on this. As much as I have highlighted my problems with this show and we've all talked about them, there's something here, there's something underneath it that, like, I watched the final episode and at the end I was like, I am happy this exists. I like enough elements of it that I'm not, like, totally angry at the show we got. Like, ultimately, I think at the core of it, it's the fact that Iman Vellani, one, is fantastic and, like, really carries the show throughout it. And her dynamics with her families and all the conversations she has with them and all the ways they interact with each other when there is not some weird other motive problem going on are really, really strong and have a lot of heart to them. And I think that's what, at the very least, is what I take away from this show. And that it fills me with joy when a lot of other elements of this show do not. If you guys had to take away one thing from this show that you liked, because I know you're not high on it, one thing from this show that you liked each.
There's a great shot of Zoe trying to get into the fire drill thing, and she smashes it with her elbow whilst the hammer is just sitting above and it's the funniest thing in the whole show.
It is,
That's my biggest takeaway. It's just a very funny joke.
It is very, very good.
I sat here trying to think of something, and that's all I could get.
That's fair.
And Iman Vellani.
Oh, I will say, just a side thing. I don't know what I was watching or listening to today, but someone mentioned, like, this is a legitimate thing in America. They were like, "Oh yeah, something happened in like a Circle K near me."
Yeah, it's a real thing.
I had no idea that was a real thing.
They just changed the letter.
And they just changed it to Q. Yeah. I'd never heard of Circle anything. That was just fascinating to me. It took me by surprise. I think my main thing is just how great she is. Like, she's just so good. I'm looking forward. Like, the show messy as hell, but she is just so adorable.
Good.
She's so good. As her first
it's her first ever acting gig. She's never acted before.
Like, phenomenal. She's so funny.
Charismatic, even outside of the show as well. Just watching her in any interviews, she is just like, seems like an absolute joy to be around.
I want them to inject more of the nerdiness, because she's got a great bubbliness, and that's awesome. But I think she gets deep real quickly on Marvel stuff in interviews, and I think that'd be nice if they could inject her nerdy side, because it's kind of like they let Bruno be that. They let him be the one that's like a little awkward and nerdy, and she's still like a wonderful, like not eccentric. Like, she's just got an enthusiasm about it that I'm like, just hit a bit more nerd. just be a bit more introverted. That's like,
yeah, totally.
That'll be more fun. But
we get that like first scene where she's like recreating the final battle of Endgame, and more of that would be really, really good. I totally agree. I think ultimately they've created a very good MCU Miss Marvel character, which I'm excited to be taken into other stuff, and I hope the Marvels is really good, because similarly to Captain Marvel, I think both these characters really need that second thing that they're in to like catapult them past
make them shine.
Yeah, what their original product was. I think for me, definitely like the stylized on-screen effects in the first episode. It's hard to know what to call them, because there's a lot of different stuff. There's animations, there's all that kind of thing. The CGI stuff going on in it is one of the highlights. The other highlight for me, I think, is the Sheik. I really like the Sheik.
He was fun.
Yeah.
He's a fun character.
And he makes a TikTok at the end where he's got a hot dog head or whatever.
Yeah.
The halal and haram as well, the hats.
Oh yeah, the two hats that he gives to the people. Halal and haram. So good.
I love it, because it's also like a little insight into Islamic environments, and having those cool, fun like sheiks, because Josh and I, both grown up in Christian families, know like you've got those like youth pastors, like those cool, fun youth pastors that aren't the ones you just see on like TV that are like really super preachy and everything, and they're just fun and like want to chill out with you and that kind of thing. And like it's cool to see that, but like shown for like another religion or something, because I'm sure plenty of those exist. We don't see any of them at all in our lives, so it's cool to see that presented. And just at its core, cool to see a bit more South Asian representation and more of those stories told on TV, as is the case with a lot of the current phase of MCU stuff. Cool to have more representation. Definitely go listen to breakdowns of people who are more like who that is more relevant to, and listen to what their thoughts are on this show, because I'm sure they have plenty to say on it, and hopefully some more positive things, because obviously we can't speak to a lot of it, so that takes away a lot of what is probably a very strong part of this show. So if you want to find more about that, there are plenty of places you can go to, but that's been our thoughts on Miss Marvel.
Do we want to talk about the final scene?
The Captain Marvel?
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't really bring it up.
Really
so
quickly.
Kamala's now floating in space or suffocating somewhere?
Because Will was thinking it wasn't her actually transforming, but it was a...
Well, it is. They've
transporting.
They've confirmed teleport.
It was a teleport.
It's just flat out teleport.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Teleport?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I didn't bring it up because I feel like there was a lot to say.
But
I didn't know that part, so I'm glad we did.
Yeah.
But
yeah, because it was totally like we were both shouting, they did the thing! Oh my god, they did the thing! But
it's like that's never... Her powers aren't being able to change herself at all in its entirety.
Apparently,
so,
like the OG Captain Marvels, there's the something bands, and when you clash
Nega bands,
you clash them together, you'll swap places with each other. So it's people are theorizing in space, because at the end of Shang-Chi, they're looking for something that's sending out a signal. They're wondering if that was another band, and Carol's gone, found it, picked it up, and switched.
It's actually 10 rings.
That is actually 10 rings.
There you go.
Yeah.
All around a band. So
okay, interesting.
So you know, it is one of those things where you're like in The Flash when Ezra Miller showed up in the show, and it was like is this thing going to be used in the Flash movie? It almost had that feel of like, is this something they've shot because they've done it many times. Ant-Man finished with a shot from Civil War, like they just have picked up Doctor Strange with Ragnarok and stuff like that. It's like that could just be a scene from the movie.
Yeah, for sure.
That might be the opening of the Marvels.
Yeah,
which would be cool.
I think, as you said, Will, earlier, I'm excited to see just the quick scene we get with Brie Larson and the family. I think that'll be really funny. I think Brie Larson, very charismatic actor, and as we've established about the family, they're all great. So I think that's going to be fantastic.
Really fun.
I am weirdly more excited for this film after this show. I don't know why. I think it's mainly because we didn't know anything about what Miss Marvel was to this universe. And I think at the core, as we've talked about, what we're moving away from this show with is that really strong actor in the role.
Yep.
So yeah, I think the Marvels I'm cautiously excited.
And Monica's amazing. And I just watched Captain Marvel. I actually really like that movie. That's like, it's just sitting below like the good movies, which is like...
Yeah, the more I watch that film, the more I like it as well. I hope by some good grace that happens with this TV show. A lot of people seem to love it. But if they go into like nega bands and all that like weird cosmic stuff, it could be really fun.
That'd be sick.
I totally am of the opinion if they lean more into like weird cosmic stuff, that's where the MCU is going to get really strong. I think that's part of the parts of Thor: Love and Thunder that I loved a lot. So it'd be cool to see these characters kind of incorporated into that wider story for sure.
Totally.
Cool. Any final thoughts?
Nah, I like the theme. The theme and score was wonderfully closer to the Captain Marvel theme than I was expecting. They actually infused a lot of the sounds of Pina Toprak's score from Captain Marvel. So it's cool. I think if they do it, they can keep their continuity. I think the two themes will come together really nicely in the Marvels.
Yeah, totally. Nice. I will actually say this is one of the few Marvel characters that I now will recognize a theme for at this point in time. It was a very recognizable, good theme sick. For her.
It was cool.
I liked all the other little bits of music they incorporated into the show as well, even if at some points they were jarring, like when they put Bon Jovi in there, but it was still a bit of fun.
That was a weird thing because they have the Bon Jovi cover band, Indian cover band or whatever. And then immediately after that, they're playing actual Bon Jovi, which we were like, it would have been cool if they had like a Pakistani version of it,
an actual cover band.
Or like surely there is a band in that culture that has covered.
It'd be out there somewhere.
That would have been so cool to have.
Totally.
And then in the last episode, I think her mum mentions.
Second to last before they leave Pakistan.
Episode 5. Her mum mentions something about loving Bon Jovi as well. It's like, what is up with Bon Jovi in the show? Like, it's come up twice, but
it came up 3 times. They mentioned it in earlier in like episode 2.
Okay.
The mum and the dad talk about falling in love with each other over Bon Jovi or something.
It's like, why? It's such a weird.
Why was it at the brother's wedding? Does he like Bon Jovi?
Yeah.
Or is that forced upon by his parents?
No, I'm pretty sure that was forced upon them.
Probably.
I did like the wedding as well. The wedding was good fun. As soon as they started fighting at the wedding, it wasn't. No. But the wedding was good fun.
Dance number.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
That was a good dance number.
Yeah. It's good fun.
I think that's it.
That's all we got to say. If you want to get more ETTO content, if you're listening to this on podcast, you can head over to youtube.com/each their own, where there's a video version of this podcast where you can see our wonderful faces and some weird visual gags that have been going on.
Let me dig in and punch you in the chin. Ready?
Bigger.
There you go. Like that.
Pretty good.
Very good. Very good. You have to watch the video of that one to find out what it was.
That's right.
If you want to get some live ETTO content, you can head over to twitch.tv/ETT online, where there's live streams happening all over the time. Sometimes figures are being battered.
They're getting battened.
Sure.
Halos are being played. Peppa Pig was played last night.
Peppa Pig was played last night. Was she ever?
Yeah, roasting some pigs.
Yeah.
And if you want to support us in any way, you can head over to patreon.com/each to their own, where for, is it $2 or $3?
$3. Get you into
$3. You can get into our super secret, not less secret, maybe a bit secret Discord.
You're aware of it.
Where we chat about a bunch of stuff with our lovely community. We have breakdown channels for shows like this and all the other TV shows that are going on at this point in time.
So many.
And films and all the things. Will's also just published a video about, is it TV shows and movies?
TV and movie,
22?
30 movies.
Everything you've watched this year?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, you can catch that on the YouTube channel. And you can catch me on ETTO stuff, but also over on twitch.tv/ArgonTV, where I do my own gameplay streams by myself sometimes. That's all I got to say. I've been Ben.
I've been Josh.
I've been Will. Josh's got to go be an Iron Man.
I do.
I
literally have to iron some things.
Josh
has to iron
I got a
some
wedding
clothes.
to go to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not the one in the show.
Yeah, you're gonna dance
Am I?
with your boot? Dance like like Bruno.
I tried to dance in the boot recently.
Yeah.
It was tough because I was wearing a suit and the boot at a party. It was a tough time.
Josh only wears one boot.
Excellent.
Just a boot.